Before I ever saw the Star Wars movies, or even knew much about them, I knew that they were produced in a weird order. In the 70s and 80s, they made 3 movies, now known as episodes 4 to 6, and when I first got into Star Wars, they were making 3 new movies that took place before the originals, the episodes 1, 2, 3. These prequels aren't popular with anyone, and that includes yours truly. While the prequels aren't some of the worst movies of all time, they might be some of the most disappointing. One of the reasons for this is that they don't do a very good job with 2 things that the originals did very well: special effects and character work. The originals used a lot of practical effects, which, after decades of use, had nearly been perfected, while the prequels mostly used CGI, which was nowhere as good yet. Not only is it a shame that the movies look overall worse than their predecessors because of that, but also because much of their creature and world design is as gorgeous as that of the originals and would have looked amazing if the effects were any good. As has been brought up before though, the bigger problem with the prequels is that next to no characters have, well, character. This is especially noticeable since there are a lot of great actors in these movies who have been given nothing to work with. Ewan McGregor as a younger version of the original movies, whilst old Obi-Wan Kenobi is probably the most interesting character in the prequels, but other good actors like Liam Neeson, Natalie Portman and Samuel L. Jackson are completely wasted. Those are big problems, but many movies have these problems. The bigger problem that the Star Wars prequels have is that they are in fact Star Wars prequels. Don't get me wrong, prequels aren't a bad idea per se. The problem is that if you screw it up, even more people will be disappointed in you than if what you screwed up was a sequel. To get to the reason that people who aren't annoying nitpickers are so often disappointed by prequels, let's take a look at why stuff like Star Wars got prequels in the first place. If your story takes place in a world different from ours altogether, there are bound to be many scenes that introduce the audience to aspects of the world's history. The original Star Wars trilogy did this quite well, often having us learn parts of the galaxy's history with little throwaway lines neatly planted into the regular dialogue. A lot of people got really, some might say far too, interested in this history. The movie industry realized this, and so Star Wars creator George Lucas made the prequel trilogy. The prequels were much more this one-man solo project than the originals, only one of which he actually directed, ever were. If this is a case against Lucas, or a case for not letting one person run a massive project on their own, is your call. Although I personally lean towards the second option. In the original trilogy, more people built on each other's ideas to create the whole story, because many people just made it up as they went along. There are some twists and turns that aren't properly set up, but watching the 2 sequels after you like the original movie won't be disappointing. The main reason for that is that they are arguably better than the original movie, but even if they were merely just as good, or even slightly worse, they wouldn't be as disappointing as the prequels are. That's because moving forward is always moving towards the unknown. If you have no preconception of what's to come, it can't disappoint you. The past, on the other hand, is never an unknown. All the little bits and pieces of world building and history in the original trilogy are vague enough that every viewer will have their own version of what, for example, the Clone Wars, the events that created the status quo present in the original movies, were exactly. This will be different for every single viewer. My version of that would dive a lot more into the implications of cloning and grant a much bigger part to Obi-Wan. That's just me though, and I know it's different for you and everyone else. No matter how good of a job Lucas could have done, his Clone Wars would always pale in comparison to yours. Lucas seemed to have realized this and only showed us the very beginning and the very end of the events in the actual movies. I'm not sure whether that makes it more or less disappointing to me, but it just demonstrates how bad of an idea it was to say, hey, you know the first of these Star Wars movies? Well, it turns out that's actually the fourth of them. Here are the first 3. Since 2015, Disney are putting out a new Star Wars movie every year. Of the 2 that are out already, one, The Force Awakens, is a sequel to the main story, while the other, Rogue One, is a small-scale prequel. There will be more of both kinds, and since I enjoyed both of them, I'm looking forward to both. The Force Awakens was a much better movie than the prequels were, but I wonder if people would have embraced it more than the prequels, even if it wasn't as good as it is, simply because it doesn't face the problem that I talked about in this video. Rogue One proved to me that Star Wars prequels are a good idea if you don't put them on the same level as the main movies. If you enjoyed me going on about Star Wars, there's a video about why I like the diverse casting of The Force Awakens which you can watch. If there is anything you want to tell me, do so in the comments or on social media. There will be a new video next Tuesday, so subscribe if you want to catch that. Until then, may the Force be with you.